If you had told me a year ago that I'd lose everything while fighting for my life, I would have laughed and called you crazy. But life has a way of testing you in ways you never expect. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. My name is Charles Bennett. I'm 64 years old, and for most of my life, I believed in the American dream. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, the son of a factory worker and a school teacher. My parents taught me the value of hard work, honesty, and family. I carried those lessons with me through every chapter of my life. I met my wife, Susan, at a church picnic. She was the kind of woman who made everyone feel at home, with a laugh that could fill a room and a heart big enough for the whole world. We married young, bought a little house on Oak Street, and started a family. That house was more than just four walls and a roof. It was the place where we built our lives, raised our children, and weathered every storm together. I worked as a mechanic at the local garage, and Susan taught at the elementary school. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Every spare dollar went into fixing up the house. New windows, a fresh coat of paint, a garden out back where Susan grew tomatoes and sunflowers. Our kids, Lisa and Brian, grew up with scraped knees and muddy shoes, chasing fireflies in the yard and building forts in the living room as the years passed. The house became a living scrapbook of our family's story. The pencil marks on the doorframe where we measured the kids' heights, the dent in the kitchen floor from the time Brian dropped a bowling ball, the faded wallpaper in the hallway that Susan picked out the year Lisa was born. Every corner held a memory, every room a piece of our hearts. When Susan got sick, the house became my anchor. I spent sleepless nights by her side, listening to the creak of the floorboards and the hum of the old refrigerator. After she passed, I poured myself into keeping the house just the way she liked it. It was my way of holding on to her, of keeping her close, even when she was gone. Lisa and Brian grew up and moved away, chasing their own dreams in bigger cities. They called on holidays, sent cards on my birthday, but visits became less frequent as the years went by. Still, I never felt alone. The house was my companion, my comfort, my legacy. I never imagined that one day it would all be taken from me. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away. I ignored it at first, chalking it up to old age and too many years spent breathing in engine fumes. But when the fever hit, I knew something was wrong. The doctor at the clinic sent me straight to the hospital. Pneumonia, they said. Serious, but treatable. I told myself I'd be home in a week, maybe two, but the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks into months. Complications set in. My body, worn down by years of hard work and heartbreak, struggled to heal. I missed my home, the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the sound of rain on the roof, the feel of Susan's old quilt wrapped around my shoulders. Lisa and Brian visited a few times, but they always seemed distracted, checking their phones, whispering in the hallway. I tried not to take it personally. They had their own lives, their own worries. I just wanted to get better and go home. I never imagined that while I was fighting for my life. My own children would make a decision that would change everything. The hospital days blurred together. White walls, the steady beep of machines, nurses coming and going with gentle smiles and quiet words. I tried to keep my spirits up, telling myself I'd be home soon, back in my own bed, surrounded by the memories Susan and I had built together. But every time I asked Lisa or Brian about the house, they changed the subject. Don't worry. Dad, just focus on getting better, Lisa would say. Squeezing my hand before glancing at her phone, Brian was even more distant. He'd sit by my bedside, scrolling through emails, barely looking up when I spoke. Everything's fine at home, Dad. We've got it covered. But I could sense something was wrong. There was a tension in their voices, a heaviness in the air whenever they visited. I tried to push the worry aside, but it gnawed at me. It's growing stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, a social worker came to see me. She was kind, with soft eyes and a gentle voice. Mr. Bennett, your children have been handling your affairs while you've been here. I just wanted to check in and make sure you're comfortable with everything. I frowned, confused. What do you mean handling my affairs? She hesitated. They mentioned you'd given them power of attorney so they could take care of things while you were in the hospital. I felt a chill run through me. I remembered signing some papers when I was first admitted, but I'd been so sick, so tired. I trusted my children. I never imagined they'd do anything without telling me. The next time Lisa visited, I asked her directly, "What's going on with the house, Lisa? Is everything all right?" She looked away, her cheeks flushing. "Dad, we had to make some decisions. The bills were piling up, and the house needed repairs. Brian and I thought it would be best to sell it. You can't live there alone anymore. It's too much for you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You sold the house? Without telling me?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Dad, please try to understand." "We did it for you. We found a nice apartment close to Brian's place. You'll have everything you need. No more worrying about maintenance or yard work. It's safer this way." I stared at her, unable to speak. The house, my home, my memories, my life, gone. Sold while I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting to breathe. Brian came the next day, trying to explain. "Dad, it was the right thing to do. The market was good, and we got a fair price. You'll be comfortable in the new place. We'll help you move your things." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "You had no right. That house was all I had left of your mother. You should have talked to me." He looked away, guilt flickering across his face. "We thought you'd understand. We just wanted what was best for you, but I didn't understand. I couldn't." The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. I felt lost, adrift, as if the ground beneath my feet had vanished. The days that followed were a blur of anger and grief. I barely spoke to Lisa or Brian, refusing their calls, turning away when they visited. The nurses tried to comfort me, but nothing could fill the emptiness inside. I thought of Susan. Of the life we'd built together, of the promise I'd made to keep our home safe for as long as I lived. I had failed her. I had failed myself when the doctor finally told me I was well enough to leave. I felt no joy. I dreaded seeing the new apartment, dreaded facing the reality of what my children had done. But I had no choice. My home was gone. The day I was discharged, Lisa and Brian arrived with forced smiles and a rented van. "We've packed up your things, Dad. The new place is all set up. You'll love it." I said nothing as they drove me across town, past the familiar streets, past the house on Oak Street. I caught a glimpse of it as we passed. A new car in the driveway, strange faces in the window. My heart broke all over again. The apartment was clean and modern, with a view of the city skyline, but it wasn't home. It never would be. That night, as I lay in the unfamiliar bed, surrounded by boxes and silence, I made a promise to myself. I would not let this be the end of my story. I would find a way to reclaim what was mine, to honor Susan's memory, to show my children and myself that I was not finished yet. They had sold my house while I was in the hospital, but when I returned, they had no idea what was coming next. The first morning in the new apartment, I woke up disoriented. The ceiling too white, the air too still. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the boxes stacked against the wall, my life reduced to cardboard and tape. I tried to tell myself it was just a place, just for walls, but my heart knew better. Home was more than a roof. It was the echo of laughter, the smell of Susan's cinnamon rolls, the creak of the old stairs at midnight. I shuffled to the window and looked out at the city. Cars rushed by, horns blaring, people moving with purpose. I felt invisible, a ghost in someone else's life. I made coffee, but it tasted wrong. I tried to read, but the words blurred. I wandered from room to room, searching for something familiar, something that felt like mine. Lisa called that afternoon. "Dad, how are you settling in? Do you need anything?" I wanted to scream to tell her that I needed my house, my garden, my memories. But I just said I'm fine and hung up before she could hear the crack in my voice. Days passed in a fog. I tried to keep busy, unpacking, organizing, walking the halls of the building. But everywhere I went, I felt like an intruder. The neighbors were polite but distant, their doors always closed. The staff smiled, but their eyes slid past me. Already looking for the next resident to check on. One afternoon, I decided to visit Oak Street. I told myself I just wanted to see the old place one more time, to say goodbye. I took the bus across town, my hands trembling as I walked the familiar path. The house looked different. New paint, new flowers in the yard, a swing set where Susan's rose bushes used to be. A young couple sat on the porch laughing, their little girl chasing a dog across the lawn. I stood across the street, my heart aching. I wanted to walk up the steps, to tell them the stories hidden in every brick, every floorboard. But I knew I couldn't. The house wasn't mine anymore. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. As I walked back to the bus stop, I passed Mrs. Carter, my old neighbor. She gasped when she saw me. "Charles, I heard you'd been sick. I'm so glad you're all right. But what happened? Why did you sell the house?" I shook my head, unable to speak. She patted my arm, her eyes full of sympathy. "It's not the same without you and Susan. The new folks are nice, but it's different. If you ever need anything, you know where I am." Her kindness warmed me, but it also sharpened the pain. I realized then that I wasn't just mourning a house, I was mourning a life, a community, a sense of belonging. That night I sat in the apartment staring at the boxes I hadn't unpacked. I thought about Susan, about the promises we'd made, about the life we'd built. I thought about Lisa and Brian, about the choices they'd made, about the distance that had grown between us. I knew I couldn't go back. But I also knew I couldn't stay lost forever. The next morning I opened one of the boxes and pulled out an old photo album. I flipped through the pages, wedding pictures, birthday parties, Christmas mornings by the tree. I smiled at Susan's grin, at the kids' messy faces, at the memories that refused to fade. As I turned the pages, an idea began to form. I remembered something Susan had said years ago when we were struggling to make ends meet. "Charles, home isn't just a place. It's the people you love, the memories you make, the kindness you share. As long as you carry that with you, you're never really lost." I realized then that I still had something left to give. I couldn't reclaim the house, but I could reclaim my life. I could find a way to honor Susan's memory, to rebuild my sense of purpose, to show Lisa and Brian, myself, that I was still here. I started small. I joined a community group at the apartment building, helping organize events and fix things around the place. I volunteered at the local food pantry, sharing stories and laughter with people who needed a friend. I reached out to old neighbors, inviting them for coffee, reconnecting with the community I'd lost. Slowly, the apartment began to feel less like a prison and more like a home. I hung Susan's quilt on the wall, planted a few flowers on the balcony, filled the rooms with photos and memories. I found comfort in routine, in small acts of kindness, in the knowledge that I was still capable of making a difference. But the pain of betrayal lingered. I couldn't forget what Lisa and Brian had done. Couldn't forgive them. Not yet. I knew I needed to confront them, to make them understand the depth of my hurt, the weight of their choices. One evening I invited them both over for dinner. They arrived, awkward and uncertain, glancing around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. We sat at the table, the silence heavy between us. Finally I spoke. "You sold my house while I was in the hospital. You took away the one thing that mattered most to me. I need to know why." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, we thought we were doing the right thing. We were scared. We didn't want you to be alone if something happened." "We never meant to hurt you." Brian nodded, his voice thick. "We made a mistake, Dad. We should have talked to you." "We're sorry." I listened, my anger softening into sadness. "I can't change what's happened. But I need you to understand what you took from me. I need you to see me, not as a burden, but as your father." They nodded, tears streaming down their faces. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope, sensed that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But I also knew that forgiveness would take time, and I was determined to make the most of whatever time I had left. After that dinner, something inside me changed. I realized that while I couldn't turn back time or bring back my house, I could stand up for myself and for Susan's memory. I owed it to her, and to the man I'd always tried to be. I decided I wouldn't let my story end with loss and regret. I started by gathering every document I had, Old deeds, insurance papers, letters from the bank, even the power of attorney forms Lisa and Brian had used. I read every line, determined to understand exactly what had happened. The more I learned, the more I realized how little control I'd actually had. My children had meant well, but they'd made decisions in fear, not love, and the law, it seemed, had been on their side. But I wasn't ready to give up. I reached out to a local attorney, Mrs. Franklin, who listened patiently as I told her my story. She reviewed the paperwork and shook her head. "Charles, you may not be able to reverse the sale, but you do have rights. If you feel you were coerced or not of sound mind when you signed those documents, there may be grounds for a case. At the very least, you deserve to be heard." Her words gave me hope. For the first time since leaving the hospital, I felt a sense of control. I filed a formal complaint, not to punish Lisa and Brian, but to make sure my voice was heard. I wanted them, and anyone else who might find themselves in my shoes, to know that older people are not invisible and their wishes matter. The process was slow. There were meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. Lisa and Brian were shocked when they received notice of the complaint. At first, they were angry, but as the weeks passed, their anger faded into guilt and reflection. We met with a mediator, and for the first time, they truly listened as I explained what the house had meant to me, how their actions had made me feel. "I know you were scared," I told them, "but you made a decision for me, not with me. You took away my home, my memories, my sense of belonging. I need you to understand that." Lisa wept openly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was just protecting myself from fear. I never meant to hurt you." Brian nodded, his voice trembling. "We can't undo what we did, but we want to make it right. Tell us how." I thought about it for a long time. I didn't want money or revenge. I wanted respect, honesty, and a chance to rebuild trust. I asked them to help me reconnect with the community, to support my volunteer work, and to spend real time together, not out of obligation, but out of love. They agreed. Slowly, things began to change. Lisa started joining me at the food pantry, helping serve meals and listening to the stories of people who had lost even more than I had. Brian helped me organize a neighborhood event, bringing together old friends and new faces. We planted a small garden outside my apartment, a tribute to Susan's love of flowers. Word of my story spread through the community. People reached out, sharing their own experiences of loss and betrayal, of finding strength in unexpected places. I was invited to speak at a local senior center, where I told my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor. I spoke about the importance of communication, respecting the wishes of those we love, of never giving up hope. The apartment, once a symbol of loss, became a place of new beginnings. I filled it with laughter, with friends, with purpose. I started a support group for others who had faced similar betrayals, helping them find their own voices and reclaim their dignity. Lisa and Brian changed too. They became more present, more attentive, more willing to listen. Our relationship, once strained and distant, began to heal. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but it was real. One day, Brian surprised me with a small wooden box. "Dad, I made this for you. It's not much, but I wanted you to have something that's just yours." I opened the box and found a collection of old photos, letters, and a key, the key to the house on Oak Street. "I asked the new owners if we could visit sometime," Brian said. "They said yes. Maybe we can go together, share some stories, and say a proper goodbye." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged him. It wasn't the same as having my house back, but it was a step toward healing. I realized then that justice isn't always about winning a case or getting back what you lost. Sometimes it's about being heard, about standing up for yourself, about teaching others the value of respect and love. I had fought for my dignity, for Susan's memory, for my place in the world. And in doing so, I had found something even more precious, a renewed sense of family and a community that refused to let me fade away. But the story wasn't over yet. There was still one more chapter to write, a chapter of hope, forgiveness, and new beginnings. Spring arrived with a gentle warmth, coaxing green shoots from the earth and sunlight through my apartment windows. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. The pain of losing my house would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined me. I had found new roots, new purpose, and most importantly, a new understanding with my children. Lisa and Brian visited often now, not out of guilt, but out of genuine desire to reconnect. We spent weekends together, sometimes volunteering, sometimes just sharing a meal and laughter. Max, Brian's son, became a regular visitor, filling my apartment with the kind of energy and joy I thought I'd lost forever. He loved hearing stories about Susan, about the old house, about the adventures his dad and aunt had as kids. One Saturday, Lisa brought over a scrapbook she'd made. It was filled with photos of Oak Street, pressed flowers from Susan's garden, and handwritten notes from neighbors and friends. "I wanted you to know," she said softly, "that your story, and Mom's, lives on. The house may be gone, but the memories are safe." I hugged her, tears in my eyes. For the first time, I truly believed it. Brian kept his promise about the house. One bright afternoon, we visited Oak Street together. The new owners welcomed us warmly, eager to hear about the home's history. I walked through each room, sharing stories, pointing out the marks on the Theodore frame, the spot in the kitchen where Susan used to dance while she cooked. It was bittersweet, but it brought a sense of closure I hadn't known I needed. As we left, the new owners handed me a small bag. Inside was a piece of the old garden fence, weathered but sturdy. "We found this when we were fixing up the yard," they said. "We thought you might want to keep it." I smiled, holding the piece of wood like a treasure. It was a reminder that even when life changes, some things, memories, love, legacy, endure. Back at the apartment, I mounted the piece of fence on my balcony and planted a few of Susan's favorite flowers beneath it. Every morning, I'd sit with my coffee, watching the blooms sway in the breeze. Feeling her presence in the sunlight and the scent of the earth, the support group I'd started grew, drawing in people from all walks of life. Some who'd lost homes, others who'd lost family, all searching for connection and hope. We shared our stories, our pain, and our victories. We learned that healing isn't about erasing the past, but about building something new from what remains. Lisa and Brian became active in the group, helping others navigate difficult conversations and decisions. They spoke openly about their mistakes, their regrets, and the lessons they'd learned. Our family, once fractured, became a source of strength for others. One evening, as we sat together on the balcony, Lisa turned to me. "Dad, I know we can never undo what happened, but I hope you know how much we love you and how grateful we are for your forgiveness." I squeezed her hand. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Lisa. It's about choosing to move forward together." Brian nodded. "You taught us that, Dad. You taught us what it means to fight for what matters, and to never give up on family." I looked at my children, at my grandson, at the flowers blooming beneath the old fence, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned, but it had given me something just as precious, a second chance to love, to teach, to belong, as the sun set over the city. Painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, I realized that home isn't a place. It's the people you cherish, the memories you carry, and the hope you nurture for tomorrow. They sold my house while I was in the hospital, but when I returned, I found something even greater. A family rebuilt, a legacy restored, a heart finally at peace. If you've ever lost something you thought you couldn't live without, remember, sometimes what you find in its place is the true gift. Never stop believing in new beginnings. This was my story. This was my lesson. And it's one I'll carry with me wherever I go.